Okay, cool. Well, hello. Hi, I'm George, and this is Wolf, which is drummer, photographer, drum hang. How are you guys doing today? Thanks for everybody getting a hold of me today and putting everything on Facebook. Man, this is the first time, and I'm very excited to have Wolf. And before he gets started, I want to let you know that I owe everything to drummer, photographer to Wolf, because Wolf actually started drummer, photographer. We're not going to get into the whole thing about that, but he said, why are you shooting all these concerts and all these things when you have all these really cool drummers to do? And long story short, we got rid of the concert website, and I became a concert drummer photographer. So what's up, Wolf?
Good to see you, George.
So where are you right now? There's a lot of sun out there.
Yeah, I am in specifically Culver City at my girl's place. Well, I guess it's our place now. I moved, so I'm bi-coastal, so I still have my apartment in New York. But I moved, whenever I was in LA for however many years, I would always stay at my friend's house in West Hollywood, and you and I have FaceTime from that place.
Right.
Where he's got a Pro Tools rig set up there and a bunch of other stuff, and it's basically his guest house. But when was it? I guess around January. Like right around NAMM time, I've moved all my stuff from there here, and this has been my LA residence. So like basically we're a bi-coastal couple now. So like my New York place is our place there, and our West Coast place is our place here.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I flipped my schedule. You know me as a vampire, and but I'm actually getting up early these days, and yes, you can see lots of light in here.
Yes.
Palm trees out the window.
Yeah.
So
it suits you. It suits you well.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think New York was getting to be just a dark drag for a lot of people.
I love New York, but the New York that I know has been disappearing steadily and becoming more of just like a corporate, like financial hub. It's a lot of the cool shit just can't afford to stay there anymore. So, a lot of the vibe of the city. I mean, it'll always have some vibe, but it's definitely not the vibe it used to be. So, and I do so much remote work that I don't have to be in New York all the time to do what I do. So, and I used to hate LA. I've always loved the weather here, but I always hated it here. I hated the vibe, but the vibe has grown on me, and more of my East Coast friends are living out here now. So, yeah, in the last few years, you've heard me talk about it. I dig LA more and more, and yeah, it was only a matter of time. Before. I always said I was bi-coastal, but I was mostly New York. Now it's shifted where it's 50-50, and right now, because of the quarantine, I'm just out here indefinitely. I don't know when I'm going to be back to New York. So, excuse me, I'm going to drink my breakfast while we talk.
That's right, me too. I'm going to hide the fact that I'm still drinking Diet Coke.
Oh, no. Mm-hmm. Got to get a Vitamix, start making healthy food.
Well, that leads me to my first... Name that name. Luke, what does Luke Hamilton mean to you, Wolf?
Oh, good question. Luke Hamilton, I was just thinking about that because my back has been killing me. Luke is an acupuncturist. Well, he's a healer. He does more than acupuncture, but his main thing is acupuncture. And I've had to get all kinds of body work over the years since I started having problems with my hands and my back when I was like 20. And Luke is one of the best. He just, whatever you do, whether you're a musician or a chef, whatever it is, or like certain people just have that gift, and it's like an innate thing, and they're really intuitive. He's able to like unlock my shit better than pretty much anybody I've seen over the years. So he's been and I've recommended so many friends go see him, and also he's not just, he doesn't do the body work. He also got me into doing Qigong and things that I was doing a little bit, but he's been pushing me to do more and more. And I've gotten taller since working with him, just because my spine was so bent that he slowly has kind of improved everything. And so as long as I'm seeing him like every week or so in New York, I'm straight. But I haven't seen him in months. I mean, because I remember when I was still in New York, the quarantine started. He wasn't allowed to stay open. So, but yeah, no, he's been a lifesaver for me. And yeah, so I don't know if he's watching, but What's up, Luke?
Well, we'll see. Well, he's helped me out via you. I literally brought this Diet Coke on as a prop. There's really nothing in it. It's water. It's not. Wolf has been talking to me about being healthy for a long time. So, okay, the next name I want to throw out is Dr. Luke.
Mm-hmm. So Dr. Luke Gottwald, one of my oldest friends, one of the first people I met when I first got to New York. When I met him, he was studying jazz guitar, and but he was already like ready to take over the world. Even he was like 15 when we met. And then I just watched him go from that to getting more into production and writing, and we were all kind of getting into programming. Adam Dorn is another really good old friend of mine. We all had MPCs. We were all doing, besides, Adam was primarily a bass player first, but Adam got heavy into production pretty young. Luke, same thing. So we all had like a foot in both worlds, like session musician, and then like programming and production. And then Luke really shifted gears hard. He got the SNL gig. He was the guitarist in the house band for 10 years. And while he was still in the band, he started having massive hits. First co-writing with Max Martin, anybody who listens to pop music knows Max Martin's name. And then Luke just had this crazy run of like back-to-back #1 hits worldwide. And so, yeah, a lot of my biggest pop credits are working with him. There were certain things where he would have me on doing additional production, especially when he was still in New York. Other things I would just do live drums, other things some programming, some things both. And so, yeah, and I learned a lot about production. I mean, I've learned about production from every producer I've worked with over the years, and I've been really fortunate to work with like the best producers in the business. That sounds really cheesy, the best in the business, but they really are.
No, it's so fun.
The business. And but yeah, Luke kind of created a formula. Like he became a guy that like I would hear, like, to me he's just Lukash. But I would run into people and they'd be like, Dr. Luke? Because like, he really kind of created a blueprint for what the sound of the radio has been for a long time. So yeah, he's like such an old friend that he's like family, but I also know who he is, like his stature in the music business, but he's just my boy. So, yeah.
Because that's the next one I had in line was SNL, so you kind of hit that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I worked on SNL before he was in the band, just with Annie Lennox as a musical guest. And when he was in the band, they needed a drummer for a sketch, and Sean Pelton wasn't able to do it because the sketch was going into commercial where the band had to play. So Luke, I've been friends with Lenny Pickett, the band leader, for a long time. So Luke told Lenny, I guess, like, call Wolf. So they had me play a drummer in a sketch. And then Sean rarely misses a show anymore. I don't think he's missed one show in the last like 10 years, so I subbed for him on that, and that came through all those guys. And I have a bunch of friends in that band. And but yeah, SNL, it's that's one of those dream gigs. So and Sean really owns that gig, and he's been playing the shit out of it for over 25 years. But it was fun just to sub. So yeah.
So tell me how the Seth Myers thing came on.
That came pretty organically. Eric, who is a great drummer himself, who's one of the show's producers, I think it was his idea when they made some changes in the band, instead of just getting a new permanent drummer, to just have different drummers. And I might be messing the backstory up a little bit, but just to have, I think at first he just reached out to some of his friends, because he's before he was doing that, he was playing with like a major label artist and had endorsements and all that stuff. So and I think he was living out here, so he was already friends with a lot of like named drummers from being on the road. So I think he started having his friends and then just started reaching out, and he just had a list of drummers. And then eventually I met him in New York at Main Drag Music, and got you have a reflex pad? We talked about the reflex.
So it's been a while.
So anyway, I want to say that Guy, who is the guy behind reflex pads, was tight with Eric, and I think that was the first time I met Eric was through Guy. But then we stayed in touch on social media, and just one day he DM'd me and was like, "You want to come do the show sometime?" And he gave me a list of dates, and I was happy to do it, and it was a lot of fun. Really, really good people. Any TV gigs I've done have been pretty like cush gigs. So, but that's a whole other level because it's they really make you feel like part of the family, because any band becomes a family after a while. So it was really cool. But it's a really good hang. The band is great. The MD is great. Eric's a great producer. Seth Myers is really cool, very friendly, and yeah, it's a really warm atmosphere there, and it's a lot of fun, and it's not a lot of pressure because they have a system down where you every day you're literally writing songs for the commercial, going in and out of commercials that day, but they have it set up so we don't really need charts. I won't go into detail how to do it, but it's they found a way to do it so it's very low stress. So the only issue I had is I hate wearing in-ears, and I wanted to wear headphones over the ears, but they were like, we don't do that. So
what'd you say Guy's last name was?
I don't want to mispronounce it. So
well, he's here. He's on here.
Oh, he's here?
Yeah.
What's up, Guy? So
I didn't want to mispronounce it either. So
yeah. So yeah, I call him Guy because I know I'm going to butcher his last name if I say it. Sorry.
Me too.
But yeah, Guy is also another person who's like like Eric is actually a heavy drummer himself. Guy is a ridiculous drummer. He's you know JoJo. Have you had JoJo on?
Not yet.
So Guy is kind of, I mean, he's his own drummer, but I don't necessarily want to say he was JoJo's protege, but like I know he does he can do a lot of the same like otherworldly, like inhuman drum shit like JoJo does. But yeah, Guy's been in a bunch of bands. He's worked with people like Bill Laswell. Like he's so humble. Like I met him through Adam Dorn, who I talked about before. Adam is also a motion worker. That's Adam's former DJ name. But Adam introduced me to Guy online. Guy reached out and I think Guy was in this band, what are they called, VHS or Beta, that Adam had produced. I don't know if you remember them. They were a big indie band. Anyway, he was like, yeah, this is my boy Guy. Guy was so humble. I had no idea his resume and all the shit he'd done. So, or that he could play so great. But I don't know if you remember, I briefly had a practice room in Williamsburg. That came through Guy because he had a room there. And yeah, Guy has ridiculous hands, and feet. So
okay, I'm not the reflex guy. I'm the guy from Spinable, the cymbal spinner. Sorry for the confusion. I'm enjoying.
Sorry.
Well, I can't pronounce his last name anyway. Sorry, Guy.
Let me look here.
That's the bad thing. You can't see it, and I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, can you see it? Okay.
Oh, Ken Hawks used to have long hair. What happens? I shaved my head. Is what happened. Yeah, I had long hair for years, and it was getting like just. I still have hair, but it was just looking thinner and thinner, and it reached that point where I was like, do I want to be that like old rocker with like the scraggly hair, and I never liked my hair because it didn't have any body. It just hung there. I had to, like, you look like you have like wavy hair. My hair was just flat, and I had to put a shitload of product in it to do anything. I never liked it. So when it started to look, I was looking like Kid Rock, and I thought his hair looked kind of cheesy. So I buzzed it. Then I had a mohawk for a while, and then I shaved the mohawk, and then I was buzzing it short, and then one day I just got a razor and said fuck it and started shaving it, and I'm much happier this way.
You've got to look. You got to look, Wolf. You can't. It's too late now. You can't go back. You can't go back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Definitely not.
Well, Guy piped in here and said we've been confused with each other before. So. So.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know who I'm being Leland Schuyler. That's who people are comparing me to now.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to grow your beard and hair way longer, but yeah, you guys both have the white manes. Mm-hmm. What's up, Jason? So Jason M. Tabosa, I'm probably also butchering. I butcher everybody's last name. So anyway, Jason, who is a Berklee friend, who did you see High Tops to Hi Hats?
Yes.
I did an interview here. That's Jason. So giving Jason a shout
Jason,
out.
How you doing? Thanks for stopping in.
And yeah, so that's actually anybody who's into drums and sports should check out his. It's a YouTube series, High Tops to Hi Hats.
Yep, I've seen it.
And yeah, and he's also a great multi-talented musician. And he's been posting really cool videos, quarantine videos of his kids that are adorable. So yeah.
Okay, next one.
Okay.
Lisa Maxwell.
Lisa Maxwell. I call her my adopted sister. We're not blood relatives, but I met Lisa at Berklee. Lisa, people know her now for her Shiny, that's the big band record that I was really happy to be part of recently. Lisa, I met her at Berklee, and I forget the name of the ensemble, but I was a scholarship student, and being in the scholarship program, you had to play and there was a big band where you would play arrangements for, I guess, students who were writing arrangements, something like that. But I remember, this is also 30 some years ago, so I could be getting it wrong, but I'm pretty sure I played one of her big band arrangements in that big band. And I was painfully shy back then. I was very stunted. Like, I was a depressed kid, and which ended up being great for practicing, because I just put everything into studying and practicing and gigging when I was really young. So by the time I was in my late teens, I had a lot of shit together on the instrument, but personality-wise, I was not a lot of shit together. So I was painfully shy, but she luckily was like very friendly, and we became friends. And she was really tight with Hiram Bullock, and I was a huge fan of Hiram's. And I guess Charlie Drayton was about to leave or had recently left Hiram's band, and I think Ricky Peterson, also on keyboards, had left. So she told me that Hiram was looking for a drummer and a keyboard player. So she recommended me and Dave DeLome, and we both ended up eventually joining Hiram's band. And Hiram was flying us in and out of Boston to do gigs on the weekends. And I basically stopped going to classes, and I just finally dropped out at the end of that semester. But yeah, Lisa really got my foot in the door in the whole New York music scene, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wasn't going to graduate. I went to Berklee to network. That's when I first really fucked my hands up and started having hand and breath problems. But I was able to rehab and like start playing again, and I knew I was going to either move to LA or New York and just like dive in. And but yeah, so Lisa introducing me to Hiram really changed my life. And she's also just a great friend, over the years. And, like, she's another person that I consider family at this point. Yeah. And I'm really proud of her because she's been an incredible, so I knew her as a sax player also. And that's the side thing is at Guns N' Roses, the original Guns N' Roses, at their peak, when they were doing stadium tours, she was part of their horn section. So she toured in the 90s world tour with those guys, and I remember hanging out with her. But yeah, for years she's been doing composing and arranging for TV and film, and people have been encouraging her to do her own big band record, and it was kind of in the vein of the Gil Evans Monday Night Orchestra. And so her record, it was kind of a tribute to Lou Soloff, the amazing New York staple who passed away. Right. Was also part of the Gil Evans scene. And I was really lucky through Hiram getting to sub for Ken Wizenard, who was the main drummer at the time when I moved to New York, because they used to have a Monday night residency at this place, Sweet Basil, and that was a great way to get my ass kicked playing in that big band whenever they needed me. So, but yeah, Lisa really definitely changed my life. So I don't know if she's watching, but what's up, Lisa?
Well, Tony Lewis says, "Hey, Wolf."
What's up, Tony? He's another monster drummer, and since I'm giving trivia out. Tony,
Yes.
you know the movie Fame?
Yes, we all do.
I could be getting this wrong, but I'm almost certain Tony is the. There's like in the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where you see a drummer playing a kit, and I'm almost sure. Is that you, Tony? I'm pretty sure that is Tony. Let me see. I don't know if you're still watching, Tony, but if you can verify that that is in fact you in the movie Fame, I'm pretty sure it is. So many great drummers went to that high school, like Tony, Coogee Bell, Omar Hakim. I could be getting this wrong. I think Charlie Drayton, Larry Aberman, or Aberman. I know. I
say it both ways, so
yeah. Have you talked to Larry yet?
No, not yet.
These are all guys. These are all guys you should interview on the show because they all have amazing careers.
I'm just letting everybody know this is Drum Hang's new format. So I'm creating a list in my calendar over here. So I may be hitting you up, or you can. Yeah, I may be hitting you up. So
yeah, but no, Tony just said that is him. Yeah. So you should connect with all these people. Anyway, but yes, so many. I know I'm forgetting a bunch of people, but like so many amazing drummers that I know in New York all went to high school there.
Well, that's gonna be that's my next one.
Yeah.
High school. Now I'm just gonna say that because you did well. High school for you was like not your atypical high school career.
Well, I mean, for me, because I was just so focused on music, and I was lucky that in Philly and around Philly and the Philly suburbs, there's always been a lot of talent. So, like the bands I was in a fusion band, and I was in like an R&B and original line covers R&B rock band. And like Billy Mann, who's gone on to be a huge name in the music business, also one of my oldest friends. I was in a band with Billy and Adam Dorn, who I mentioned, and the other guitarist in that band is named Clayton, or Clay for short. And I had lost touch with Clay, and then he hit me up on Facebook, I don't know how many years ago, and he was like, "Hey man, you live in New York, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you want to come? I'm playing with Jay-Z at the Berklee Center tonight." So he's like a first call guitarist on all the big hip hop and R&B tours. So yeah, and then also Kurt Rosenwinkel, who's gone on to be a major jazz guitarist and composer. We were in a band together. That was a fusion band I was in. So yeah, I was very active in music. Also, my high school's music program was decent. It wasn't amazing, but I learned most of my really great music shit was outside of school. And and then my father played music as a hobby. I mean, he did some professional stuff, but it wasn't his main thing. But like, so he would get me playing on like wedding type gigs when I was still in junior high and high school, and then I was gigging with the bands with my friends by the time I was in my mid-teens, and also like I was not, like I said, I was a depressed kid. I mean, I was also a depressed adult for a long time, but I really just seemed pretty withdrawn to people who didn't know me, but I had this like really deep inner world, and most of that was music. And everybody I know that got really good at a young age, I think, has a similar background where, you know, we were all a little off in our lives, but we could just use that to just like dive deeper into music. And also I went through puberty really late, so like I wasn't dating or doing any of that shit. Like I didn't even get tall till like my senior year of high school. So I went from like not having any kind of social life to like my last year of high school, like everything kind of came together. I grew, I was gigging a lot and had my first girlfriends, and then went straight from there to Berklee. And then from Berklee, at the time when you're young, everything seems like it's taking forever. But when I look back, like from 17 to 20, I went from like worshiping all these New York musicians, and by the time I'm in 20, I'm in New York working in bands with these guys, and also competing for gigs with my drum heroes, which was really fucked with my head for a long time.
Yeah,
the whole imposter syndrome thing.
So did the tendonitis prior to that, or after that, or during that? I mean, did it?
It's an ongoing thing. I've managed to get it like in check over the years, and I said like working with people. Like there was a guy named Richard Zukowski, who is, as far as I know, still in Massachusetts, who was treated like John Medeski, Dave Kuzinski, Mike Rivard, a bunch of other like Boston people. And he's the guy that got me eating healthy to begin with, and got me into stretching and breathing, and like turned me on to like Eastern healing, and then there were other people over the years, but the next person, like I mentioned, we talked about Luke Hamilton, like having people like that helps keep the tendonitis in check. So, but yeah, so no, that really started when I was 20.
Right.
Like, just as my career was about to, like, pop off is when my hands and back started fucking with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's why I brought it up, is because that's why I mentioned the part about high school. Because you know, get out of high school, you quit Berklee, and then you were pretty well screwed going, okay, now what am I doing? Am I done for the rest? Am I done?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I went to a sports doctor, and they were like, yeah, you can quit music. And fortunately, I ran into Dave Kuzinski, who was at New England Conservatory at the time, but was playing in the band with my friend Alpha Hanisch, a Berklee drummer. Screaming Headless Torsos, some people might know them. Mm-hmm. Amazing band. They're still together. I think Gene Lake. No. JoJo's been the drummer. Gene Lake's been the drummer. Adrian Harpham's played drums. I was the first drummer in New York after Al was no longer in the band. And I think Biscuit, great New York drummer, is the drummer now. Danny Sadownik plays percussion. Seema Efron, I believe, is still playing bass. John Medeski used to play with them. A lot of great people over the years. But Fuse was the one that told me, fuck that. Don't listen to the sports doctor. Fuck Western medicine. Go see this healer. It's going to sound crazy to you, which it did at the time because I wasn't exposed to any of that shit. And this is also pre-internet. You know, it was a very different time. But yeah, he got it, so I was able to work. But I mean, I was on the road for like 10 or 11 years, like starting when I was at Berklee, and I was in pain the whole time. So, which is one of the reasons that I decided to, like, just in 2000 just quit touring and do session work. But also, as my name got out there more from touring with bigger artists, I started getting calls for better sessions. Or not better, but just, higher profile sessions. And the money got better. And I was also, I'd been into programming. I got my first drum machine in high school. So, and that, like, I was getting work doing programming too. And, in 2000, it was like the golden era of session work was kind of over, but I knew between drumming and programming, I could carve out a niche for myself and be able to afford to stay off the road. And that's what I did. And I don't miss touring life. I really don't. It was great. And there's so many great things about it. Too many to list. But I really don't miss touring.
Yeah. It's helped you with everything else that you've done going when you first started programming.
100%. Yeah.
It's helped you with everything. I mean, you know the whole scene. You know people that are actively in it. You work with people who are actively in it.
It definitely gives you a confidence. I remember the first time I played a really large venue, and it's a different kind of pressure because as a drummer you're essentially, if you're playing backbeat bass music, you are the leader of the band. Even if you're not the MD or the lead singer or whatever, you're leading the band. You are setting the pace, the dynamics, the intensity. Like, if anybody else stops playing, the show doesn't stop. If the drummer stops, everything kind of stops. So, and the first time you play a really big room where you hear your drums coming at you, like reverberating through like an arena, it's something you kind of have to step up into, and then it just gives you a certain type of confidence that I took with me to sessions, and to this day I still do. And also, I've toured with so many within different genres, and playing with all these great musicians, and there's so many musical tools I picked up along the way, and also communication skills. Because on the road, you're spending a very small amount of time on stage relative to how much time you're hanging with people on the bus or in airports or whatever, and that's also important for recording, like to have your people skills together. So I mean, with remote recording, not as much, but still. So yeah, I I do, and also I got to see the world because I didn't really travel that much as a kid. So that's a beautiful thing.
Well, that was going to bring me to my next one, Grover Washington Jr.
Yeah. Grover is somebody that I really wish I had been a little old. I mean, it was great to be so young. I was in my early 20s when he hired me, but I was just kind of really starting to grow into myself, I think, right around the time he passed. I think he passed in 1999. And I loved playing with him, loved the whole band, and his family was amazing, and they treated you like family. And I grew up in Philly where, he was like a legend. And like everybody else, I'd seen that show. It was like the Limelight tour, and he did a special with like Richard T., Steve Gadd, Anthony Jackson, Ralph McDonald, and let's say Eric Gale. But it was like, I think it was all those guys.
It was that whole family that was actually in the CTI world.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up like listening to that stuff, and so getting to play with him, even though I was already in New York, I was my family still lived in Philly, so I would go back there and rehearse, and at that point, I didn't even have to audition. I had done enough stuff that Pablo Batista, the percussionist in Grover's band, recommended me. Let me get my laptop back up. And the first time they called, I was actually working with a band called Tribal Tech, which is an LA fusion band with Scott Kinsey, Gary Willis, and Scott Henderson. And I got that through knowing Kinsey and Lisa Maxwell because she had a connection with them, but mostly Kinsey because he was playing keyboards right after Berklee with them. And I was just filling in because their drummer Kurt Covington had left the band briefly. So, but I still I won't just bail on a gig in the middle of a tour. So I had to pass on the Grover thing. But then the guy they got didn't work out, and they called me back again and were like, "Do you want to do the gig?" And so I jumped at that, and I worked with him on and off until he passed. And unfortunately, at that point, he was so well established in his career, and having that Bill Withers duet, just the two of us, was a big crossover. So he was headlining much bigger venues than most jazz artists would. So he could go out and just do like 3 months a year and do his circuit and do like headline the Playboy Jazz Festival and whatever. And he hated flying because he had problems with his ears and the air pressure, I believe. So we didn't really do much overseas shit. It was just every year we would just tour the States and maybe Canada, do the Canadian jazz festivals. And it was great, but I couldn't pay New York rent from 3 months of work a year. So, and there was no retainer, so I would live off of the money from however long we were out, and then I would have to take other work. And then I remember I got the Annie Lennox gig when Grover was on break, and then that led to a conflict, and I had to pass on touring with Grover for a year to do her gig, which was an amazing gig. But yeah, Grover. The thing is, when I was saying earlier, I wish I had been a little older. I was such a fusion head at the time, and it was like my first time having my own full-time drum tech. And Gibraltar had been sending me these huge racks. And my drum tech was like a drummer himself, and he was encouraging me to make my kit bigger and bigger, and I had the electronic shit. So I remember being out with a double bass kit with a huge cage and 2 snares, all my pads, multiple hats, all that shit. And Grover liked it because Grover had already done the CTI shit, right. So he wanted his sound to sound newer and fresher. But I now, there will be these Grover reunion shows where it'll be Grover's old band and Najee or Gerald Albright or other people like that will play Grover's parts. And now I approach that gig more with that sound somewhere in between Harvey Mason and Gadd, and with a small kit and just pocket a more dry drum sound. But back then I was really going for it. And you know who Frankie Tano is? He's an amazing UK drummer. He's he was with Amy Winehouse at her peak, touring with her. He played with George Michael and Jack Bruce, but too many names to list. But we became friends when I was doing a tour with a UK band, And there were some gigs where he was in the opening act, and we became friends years ago and have stayed in touch. And he just hit me on WhatsApp last night and totally made my night, because he took a screenshot of an album called Grover Live that Jason Miles, who's another producer I work with, got a hold of some unreleased Grover board tapes, I believe, and got that released. So it's called Grover Live. I'm on drums on that, and I can't listen to it because I cringe, because that I hear myself. The kit's too big, sound is too bright of my drums, and I'm not really overplaying too badly, but I still feel like I'm overplaying. Mm-hmm. And but he was like, "Hey man, I didn't even know you were on this record." He said, "I was listening to this in my car, and I didn't even know it was you until in one of the songs Grover's introducing the band, and I heard your name, and he was saying how great I sounded." And I was like, "Man, I can't even listen to that." But like, but you made my night. So, but yeah, no, Grover was great, and it was such a great band to play with, and Grover was such a great guy. But I hate the way I approach the gig now. Yeah. So, it's yeah.
JD Blair's on, and Aaron Comas said, "Great stuff, Wolf."
Oh, what's up, Aaron? Aaron's another guy I go way back with to Berklee, and Aaron's another person who was like, by the time he was at Berklee, we were all teenagers. He was already amazing, and I think Aaron was one of the few people to get 8s. There's this whole thing. There's a Berklee rating system, and there are these like legends that nobody gets straight 8s. Like 8 is the top you can get. And I remember hearing rumors that like this kid Aaron got straight 8s, but Aaron was already like a fully developed, like well-rounded drummer, like at Berklee. And then and then moved to New York also, and then the Spin Doctors blew up, and he's had a great career, an amazing drummer. Does a lot of great session work too. Really good dude. But yeah, what's up, Aaron? So yeah, and I know you're friends with Aaron.
Oh yeah.
You've done some online lessons with him, right?
Oh, yeah. I've had him on here. He's
yeah.
He just got done two albums in the done. Steve Forbert. You remember Steve Forbert, Wolf?
Yeah.
Yeah. He just got done playing. He did that album. It's really, really good. I hadn't heard of Steve Forbert for a long time, so yeah, he's.
I remember when I was a kid hearing that name.
Yeah, me too. Same thing.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm just gonna throw this out. YouTube.
I am not as active as I should be probably on YouTube, but
what?
But are you meaning as far as
saying?
Like,
what is YouTube? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like it's blessing and a curse for like kids of this like younger musicians now. Like pre-YouTube, you really had to like do your own work to figure out how to play shit. And that's how people develop their own style, because we all got it wrong. I remember having vinyl, and like Billy Cobham I listened to everybody, all the greats, but when I was in high school, it was Billy Cobham and Tony Williams and Gad were the 3 people I was studying the most, I think. And I just would put the vinyl on, put my finger on the turntable to slow it down just enough. And it's not like now where you can time stretch it. It would slow down and like bring the pitch down, so it was kind of hard to hear what was going on. But I would transcribe the shit, and I'd be guessing how like what I think the sticking and the footing is. And if it's a really fast drum thing, and if it's an old recording, there's some stuff that you don't know, is that a ghost note on the snare or is that a ghost note on the kick? It's just like, it's a lot of notes at once. And that's how you develop your own shit, because you're guessing and you're getting it wrong half the time, but you come up with your own thing. And chops weren't like as ubiquitous. Like, I don't consider myself a chops guy anymore, but I was definitely a chops guy when I was at Berklee. And it was kind of rare. Like, not everybody had a lot of chops. And now, like, I see fucking 10-year-olds with like more chops than like anybody I knew back in the day. Mm-hmm. And so it's so much easier for people coming up now to learn, and not just YouTube. Like, you can get a Skype lesson and you can go straight to the source. You know what I mean? You can hit Steve Gadd up now mm-hmm. on I just heard he's going to be on, and I'm playing a Meat Hook, which is like a where you can do like online consultations, and so you can actually ask Steve Gadd himself, what's the exact sticking in 50 ways. Right. So, right. And if not, you can find 1,000 people playing it I'm exaggerating, however many people breaking it down on YouTube. So it's great. The information's out there. It's easier than ever, and it's cheap. Like you've bought vinyl. I remember having to like spend a fortune on vinyl bootlegs, just so I can get this one recording of Sly and the Family Stone to hear how Greg Errico played this one thing, yeah, it was a lot, but I feel like we all had more personality to our playing because of that. And now so many people have chops, but it's just all starting to sound generic. And
I would agree. I would agree. I mean, Aaron and I had that conversation as well, to a certain degree. It's yeah.
I want to say one thing. That being said, there are always standouts. So even though there's a lot of generic chops people now on YouTube, there's still like talent is talent, and every once in a while I'll hear a kid that is killing it, that like just goes beyond that stuff. So yeah.
Daniel East, you always sounded like yourself, dude. Even when you were a kid, I could hear that it was you.
That's really cool. What's up, JD Blair? So I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah. So Daniel East. So I mentioned Billy Mann. So they're brothers. East and Mann is not their exact last name. I'm not going to give away what their family name is, but yeah. So I remember they had a house, I want to say in Center City, Philly. Maybe it was South Philly, but I'm pretty sure it was Center City. And in the basement, Daniel had a brand new Tama kit with like power toms. I'm pretty sure it was power toms. I want to say Superstars. Are you watching, Daniel? So, and
if this
I remember
was Zoom, the screen would be full by now.
Exactly. But and he was really cool because Billy and I and whoever was in the band at the time, we would rehearse in their basement, and Daniel could have been like, no, like, go get off my drums, kid. But he was like, yeah, man, feel free, make yourself at home. And so that was one of the first pro kits I ever played, because I came up with good drums, but like all secondhand, like 60s stuff, because we're talking the 70s and then the 80s. I eventually saved up. I washed cars for 3 years on my dad's car lot, and saved enough to eventually get a double bass new Superstar kit, because that's what Cobb used at the time, and I really wanted to be him. But yeah, Daniel's kit was like one of the first pro kits I ever played, and really good dude, and also a really talented musician. And I think he does a lot of sound work now too, if I'm not getting it right. Yeah, he's saying yes, sir. So yeah, and Daniel lives are you in Florida now, Daniel? I think he is. But it's funny because music is such a community. Like, Daniel and I have a lot of mutual friends, but yet like our paths have we're so spread apart over the years. But yeah. So Daniel, thank you for being so cool and letting me play your drums back in the day. So and for continuing to be cool, being cool. Yeah, that's another people like those guys are kind of like family too, especially Billy, because we go back so far. So
in your Drumhead interview, I looked it over again, even though I read it several times when it came out. It's phenomenal. But you said, which I thought that was really cool, programming is more like painting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot I said that. Yeah. Well, the way I do it is because I do it. I do everything on within the box now in Pro Tools. So I either do grid programming, where I import my samples in and fly them around on the grid and then mess with it that way, or I'll do it via MIDI with Addicted Drums, say if I want to program virtual acoustic drums, and I'm just doing that with a mouse. I don't even use a pad controller most of the time, or a MIDI keyboard controller for most of the time anymore. So when I came up, for most of my earlier career, I was using MPCs, first a 60, then a 3000 for years. And with that, it's a little more real time. You're playing, you hear the beat as you're going, and now I don't do it that way anymore. So now it's I'm just adding color and texture like painting. And it's not till I'm done that you can press hit the space bar and you hear it, and you're like, now you hear the groove. So it's that you don't get that real time, immediate satisfaction like an MPC or really playing a kit. So, but even the way I record kit now, a lot of times it's also more and more like that, where it's almost like drum production, where we'll say just certain producers want separation, so we'll just do like the kick and the snare separately, and then overdub the hat or ride or whatever, and then go back and overdub fills, and we're just construct, and then we might beat detect it, and then edit the parts because we're going to be mixing. We want it on the grid because we're adding it to programming. We want everything to sync a certain way. So yeah, that's kind of how I think of myself now. It's just kind of like a rhythm maker / producer. Yeah. And even if I'm not the producer on the record, I have to think in terms of production when I'm crafting. Or my friend Camus, who's he does a lot of things now, but when he first blew up as a producer, but he does a lot more than produce now. But we went to Berklee together also, and he was a drummer who got into programming way ahead of everybody. Like, I mean, I was programming them, but I remember seeing him walking around with a briefcase full of, like, I want to say floppy disks, whatever the technology was at the time, with a sample library, which was, back then at Berklee, you didn't see that. So he was way ahead of the curve with that. And but he now lives across the street from me in New York, and we haven't seen each other in a while, and he's been having me work with some of his artists. And I think he called me like a drum sweetener, like where the drums are already done on a lot of these things, where they're mostly programmed, but they'll have me come in and just sweeten what's there. And it can be a combination of live and programmed, or just live. But so yeah, I'm seeing like more and more of my work kind of turning into that.
Yeah.
where I'm like the fixer or something.
So what
isn't that what they called the wolf in Pulp Fiction? Wolf, wasn't he the fixer, or was he the cleaner? Something like that.
Right.
So yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you ended up on Bowie's album.
Well, I should say that was posthumous. Like, Bowie's one of the people that he was on my bucket list when he was alive. But I didn't see any way I would work with him as a drummer, because for the last however many years of his life, two friends of mine, Sterling Campbell and Zach Alford, were basically trading that gig back and forth. So, and they both killed that gig. So I didn't see any reason why they would ever call me. But I did think Mario McNulty, who's a good friend of mine, who's a producer, great drummer in his own right, but a producer and an engineer, was Bowie's engineer for a long time, and eventually started producing stuff with Bowie. And Mario has hired me as a drummer, and even more so as a programmer, for a lot of stuff over the years. And we've collaborated, we've co-produced stuff together too. But I figured if I was ever going to work for Bowie organically, maybe it would be if like he did another record and I got called to program for it. But I never saw a way where I would actually play drums with Bowie. And then when Bowie passed, when he was still alive, there was one record he did before he got sober. I think it's Never Let Me Down, I think is the name of the record. And Bowie just didn't like it because it was not his best work. Even though the vocals were great, just the production, it just sounds like there was a lot of partying going on, and it just wasn't. I understand why he didn't love the record. So he and Mario went back and I guess kept the vocals. I could be getting it wrong. I don't know if Mario's on here, but oh, dang, the cleaner. Bowie asked Mario to like reproduce one of the tracks from that record, because he was like, I always thought this record could have been, the songs are great, I just hated the production, or I'm paraphrasing. So they did it, and Mario had like his guys from his band at that time, like I think Sterling came in and played Kit and whomever else, and Bowie loved it, and I think that was used on a compilation or something, and Bowie in the liner notes, I'm probably butchering the story, Bowie said something like, would love to at some point to revisit the whole album this way, because he was really happy with what Mario did. So and Mario and Bowie were really tight. And then after Bowie passed, I guess it was the label, the management, and also like Bowie's like family, I guess their estate, reached out to Mario and said, "Do you like? We're going to be putting out a lot of stuff, and this is something that David always wanted to do. Can you finish this record the way you started it on that one track and just do the same process?" So, and he wasn't allowed to talk about it. It was basically an NDA situation. But he told me, like, he just said, "Here, I can't talk about it publicly, but I think I'm going to be doing this thing, and there's some tracks that really need programming." And even though they were only supposed to use people from Bowie's band in his circle, he was like, I'm going to get approval to bring you into programming, to program on it. And so he got approval. And so I worked with him for a while to get that done. And there was one song where it's all me programming, and another song where I did programming and Sterling played some live drums. And it was, it's the closest I could get to. I mean, I'd see Bowie walking around Anita and stuff, like in the Village, but like I never worked with him. And so yeah, but I remember like when I went to Mario's studio, his home studio, to work on it, and like, it's something I've done. You sit in front of Pro Tools, you're soloing tracks, whatever, but like soloing David Bowie's vocal tracks, it's chills. So
yeah, I brought that. I mean, I wrote that down, obviously, because I remember you were busy and we were working. I can't remember what we were working on at the time, and because they were in your vampire days. I mean, it was like our 1 o'clock in the morning sessions. Yeah, and you'd get phone call. Just a minute, I'll be right back. And then you were talking to producers, and and I had no clue, and it was none of my business anyway. But it was like for a long time, you had all this stuff going on, and it was like, and then finally, like I think a year later, you told me that what you did. I thought, you're kidding me. You got to do that. Was amazing.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. I'm really proud of it, even though, like I said, I don't want to make it like I worked with him when he was alive, but it's it's still cool to have on my resume, and it was just a really cool project to work on. So
I mean, how many people get the opportunity, number one, to be on it, and number two, to sit there and actually listen to his voice in your headphones as you're working? It's like,
that, and also to try and do it justice, because that's the main thing. The whole spirit of the project was, this is something that Bowie really wanted, and when you compare the original to what Mario did, it's like that was the record that Bowie really wanted. And so that I'm proud that like the best compliment I could have gotten was Mario saying, like, yeah, Dave would really dig what you program on this. Like, this is the kind of shit he was into. So I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly how he said it. But basically he was like, yeah, this is what he would have wanted. So that's all I wanted to do, was just kind of do it justice. So.
Oh yeah, and take a look. Take a look where he had nothing. How many albums? 2 albums. He had nothing but jazz musicians for his last couple albums. I mean, all New York jazz musicians. Because I met a bunch of them. They I met a bunch of them. They toured.
Donnie McCaslin.
Yeah,
who was another Berklee friend.
Yeah, and it was just it's just like he found he kind of said, okay, I'm comfortable here. So I can totally see it, So
looking at I love the Bowie stuff. Thanks, Ken. Ken Hawks, another Berklee friend, just said he loved the Bowie stuff. Thanks, Ken. How are we doing on time? Did you want to look at my rig, or we got to wrap it up?
Yes, we do. First of all, Nikki Gillespie popped in today when I was just hanging on Instagram telling people. So hopefully she was gonna stop in but she wanted to stop and say hey. But yes, we do. That was my next question. Can we see your rig?
Yeah. Let me take the phone out of this thing and walk you over here. I mean, I'm not going to power it up, but I'll just give you a little tour of it. So this is This is that Phantom Focus E-Chair, which I posted out, which is the shit. It's like, you've seen my setup in New York. It's a much bigger version of this. I have a desktop computer, a bigger interface, huge monitors, and a much bigger table and MIDI controller and a bunch of other shit. It's a new 16-inch MacBook Pro with a bunch of upgrades. Underneath it, I have a couple glyph drives. I've got these like little, but surprisingly powerful Genelec 8010s, I think they are, and a very straightforward plug-and-play M audio interface. Because I'm just working in the box here. It does have a decent mic pre if I needed to record something, but I basically don't ever, for at least out here, since I'm just programming, all I need the interface for is just to have my monitors hooked up and headphones. So I've got a USB-C hub here and a wireless keyboard and mouse in space gray because it looks cooler. Yeah, and it's a bit of a shift going from a 27-inch display to the 16-inch display, but it's fine. And yeah, I finally, people who, George, that I didn't have good internet here for until a couple weeks ago. We had to switch providers, and now it's blinking. But when I first got the rig set up, I couldn't even download and install any of my shit. So, but I got it, like stuff like Spectrasonics, which are huge downloads. So yeah, I got everything installed, and yeah, it's also portable. You know what I mean? I just pull the laptop out and leave all this shit here, and I can work anywhere. So it's yeah, it's cool. And
that is sweet. That is sweet.
Sorry, it's a little bit of a mess here. Let me turn the camera off because when I brought my gear here, my girl had to move a bunch of her stuff, so we're in the process of packing some stuff up. So I wasn't supposed to show that. But anyway, so let me put the phone back here. Yeah. So yeah, that's the rig. If anybody has any questions, a friend of mine from Philly, childhood friend, had asked what I use, but it was too much to write. But John Asbell, if you're watching, I'll go over what I have installed, but I don't think he's here. So, right. Yeah. So yeah, the only thing I can't do here is play drums, and I don't know when I'm going to play a kit next because I really only cut drums in commercial studios, whether it's remote or an actual session. But yeah, I don't know when I'll feel good about being in a room full of people.
Yeah. So. Yeah, boy, I tell you, I totally, we can go down that road. I mean, the shit I just got done hearing my wife is home. The shit I just got done hearing on the news, it's not good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not good.
Yeah, when people ask me if I can track live drums on stuff now, I just have to pass on it. And people like Ash, who like has his own. What's up, Ash? Who has his own setup? Like it's Near Z in Nashville. They're and like Aaron has his own studio too. Like people that have their own drum studios now, they can work a lot.
Like Mike Bennett, he's doing a lot.
Oh yeah, Mike too. Yeah,
he's doing a lot of stuff.
That's the one thing I can't do that. So I'm strictly programming until further notice. So not only that, like I have like my little real feel pad and my sticks here, but like I had the V drum kit in New York.
That's what I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, I remember when I was like, because you and I were talking when I was still in New York, and I had everything I needed in the apartment there, but I was trying to get out here to be with my girl, and I remember like when I was packing up, and I didn't know when I was going to be back, and I honestly don't know. I probably won't be back in New York for months, so. I just said goodbye to the V kit because I was like, that's the closest thing I had to a kit to play for a while. So, and now, yeah, this is definitely the longest I've gone without actually playing a kit, and I think since I started playing when I was a kid. So, yeah.
Well, just like you told me though, the whole thing is, I didn't play my drums for like months because I concentrated on my photography, and and then I decided to go out and start playing again. Holy shit!
I remember.
it's like,
Yeah.
wow, where did this come from? How did I remember how to do this? And then, I had that lesson with Dave, and then he helped me, he helped me get my posture because because my back surgery and stuff. And so, and then I got that EAD-10, and then Mike and I had well, of course it's like you, and when we have lessons, it's supposed to be an hour, but it's 2.5.
Yeah.
So Mike and I had a 3-hour lesson because all we were supposed to do was set up the EAD-10, but we ended up running it through my DAW, and then he had me run a track, and then the next thing you know, it was like, dude, we've been here for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So his girl was calling him for dinner, and Kim had come out twice. So but that EAD-10 is exactly what you said, man.
It's a great thing. It's a great tool.
Well, Nikki has one. She was telling me today, she takes it on the road with her. I mean, she just
it's all my friends. I mean, all my friends who are Yamaha endorsers, they got it first. But even non-Yamaha people love that thing. It's a really great tool. Sorry, Daniel asked a question. Samples of your gear, or do you like a library in particular? My sample library. Well, I use for virtual live drums, I use XLN Audio Addictive Drums. I have their full library. I swear by it. Use it all the time. But for everything else, like programming, just more electronic sounding shit, or old school slices, breakbeat sounds chopped up. That stuff, it's mostly my own stuff, but I have a thumb drive I travel with. It's all backed up on the cloud, and it's also on all my drives on my gear. But it's just a huge sample library. It has stuff that I've transferred from floppy disk from my first, my MPC 60 to zip disks on my MPC 3000 to now everything's WAV files. And so I have samples going back to the late 80s, and I still make samples now. So it's a huge library, but everything's pretty well organized in folders, and I have my go-to folders. And it's easy in Pro Tools, I just do the shortcut for import audio, and I just scroll through, audition my sounds, and it's whatever I have. If I need 808 sounds, I have folders of that, 909 sounds, folders of that, dubstep sounds, whatever the genre, and then I have exotic percussion, modern percussion, Brazilian percussion, Afro-Cuban percussion. I have whatever sounds I need. It's always on there, and I'm constantly updating it. Every year, if there's some sounds, at least once a year, a producer will ask me to cop a vibe of something new, and there'll be a kick or a snare or some percussion sound that I don't have. So I either make it or I research it and find a library where I can get it. So there are certain libraries, there's a company called Vengeance. I bought a bunch of their sample packs, but I'll weed through it. Native Instruments Machine, I love the sample library it comes with, but I don't like Machine's programming architecture itself, so I don't really use Machine itself, but I use the sounds all the time. I love Native Instrument sounds. So, Daniel, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's basically my own library, which is just a mesh of stuff, including a lot of sounds I've compiled over the years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I got some. Aaron has, I think, 3 or 4 packs. And for that same reason, that it's easy for me being I moved over. I still have Pro Tools, but I moved over to Logic, and so it's easy for me to go ahead and pull that stuff in. But I thought, what, and now that I can I can put the EAD-10 and put in my own tracks, But something about it's going to Aaron's. It does 2 things. For example, it's great to listen to. It's something good for me to practice to, just to put his.
Is his stuff is it Looploft? Is that Aaron's library? Yeah. Looploft makes really good shit.
Yeah.
So,
they're, in fact, maybe he's gone now, but I still have them. I haven't even downloaded them yet. So I haven't.
Yeah. The guy that started Looploft, I think his name is Ryan. He's a friend of a friend, Adam Dorn, who I've mentioned before. And they make really great shit. I just haven't used it because I use the Addictive Drum stuff, and they're not exactly the same, but I get all the sounds I need, except for concert toms. I'm always bugging SLN to do a concert tom at back, but everything else they have all the sounds I need. So yeah.
Do you know? We probably should start winding this down here in a little bit, but Nikki mentioned something today. She said that that they were people. Their bands are going out to clubs and playing and then broadcasting. They're actually playing live. Have you?
Yeah.
They doing that out there?
I've heard of that, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's like an A-list background singer. He's also a singer in his own right, but he tours with some huge artists, and these are artists that do stadium and arena tours, and he was like, I don't know when we're going to be out on the road next.
No.
And he's like, I don't know what it's going to look like. And I was saying, like, it seems like the way forward in the meantime is to just go into like center staging or SIR in the big room, set up your full stage production with lights and everything, and just do streaming shows and do it in a way that makes it worthwhile, where make it interactive so people will actually pay to watch it live. Absolutely. And I think that's just going to be like what's happening.
Well, Butch Trucks. Do you remember when Butch Trucks had his? Butch Trucks had a streaming service only for the Allman Brothers. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he put a lot of money into it, and he was going to do just that. He was going to go out and he was just going to take the Allman Brothers stuff, and then I think he had a couple other bands too, but it didn't make it. But the concept is great. I mean,
I think that's what's going to have to happen. Oh, what's up, pal? Pal Roundhouse, another great drummer I went to Berklee with. A bunch of Berklee people showing up. So yeah, I think that's what's going to have to happen is bands, when it's safe for them to be in the room together, they'll do that, and they'll just broadcast from a club or a rehearsal or production studio or recording studio or whatever. But I think it's going to have to happen like that.
You also talk about. I know that Todd Zuckerman just did an interview on his new album, and Not So Modern Drummer, with Bob Campbell, and I hopefully that we're also going to get on here too. But and Nikki had the same thing. Do I release the album or don't I release the album? Well, Todd decided that he went ahead and released his. Nikki's going to shop hers around. She has done it. She's going to release it. And then, Pearl Jam released their album for the first. I don't know if it's still free, but it's on I don't think it's on Disney. It's on Apple Music. It's on Apple TV. And so they made this whole, and obviously they made it. They made the visuals after the fact. But it's so cool because I have a surround sound system, and it's so cool to listen to that album. So that's a whole other aspect too, is because movies are doing it.
Yeah, I think just the whole paradigm of people paying for music the way it was when we grew up, it's just, that's kind of done. I mean, diehard fans will buy records to support the artist, or if you love vinyl, or that, like, having it at home. I know you have vinyl, that's a thing. But as far as like the way like the public at large consumes music now, it's streaming.
Absolutely.
And so I think, like, and when people say I'm dropping my single, it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, that used to mean you literally would press a 45 back in the day and have to, like, just get it distributed. And or I talked to somebody recently, like, yeah, I got a distribution deal. It's like, well, what? Just distributing what? Like, it's, for most artists, it's just you're just putting your shit online. That's kind of what it is. And then you can move some physical product, but it's like the record business, I think, is still like figuring out what it is now.
Right.
But the main thing is people will always want to consume music. It's just like how you release it and in what form, and do you make your money from that, or do you make your money from other things? So
absolutely. Mike and I had the conversation, because if you ask Mike, he's a lot like you, and you and Ashley are all have the same thing. You can't. Mike's not a drummer. He does so many other things, and he puts them all together. And he told me the same thing. He goes, why concentrate on one thing? You need to put all your things together. Like, put your drums together with your videos. Put your videos together with this. So I see that happening more and more. I mean, especially as, I don't know, here we haven't had it, but I always get this question, Wolf. from I think just about everybody has had this question. How do I record my drums to sound better on Facebook or sound better on Instagram or to sound better on social media? I mean, that's a real big question that a lot of people have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that, like the EAD is a great tool for that. But honestly, the best thing is just be a good drummer, have a good touch, have a good sounding instrument, and be in a good room. There's a guy named Mike Peel who I also went to, another Berklee friend. I don't know if he's on now, but Mike, he does great drummer, but he does, I guess, carpentry, and he's a craftsman, but he still plays drums, and he's got some really cool old drums. And there's a boathouse, for like rowing crew. There's a boathouse in New England, wherever he lives. I don't know where. Maybe it's in Boston, where I guess on the down season they let him set his drums up there. And he recently posted a bunch of videos of him drumming, and he's got it's this huge vintage Ludwig, looks like a 28-inch kick or something, and an old Superphonic and some funky Zildjians, and the room sound is massive, and the drums sound beautiful. And I left a comment on Instagram. I was like, "Is that just the room, or are you processing?" He said, "It's just literally my iPhone on a stand. You're hearing the room straight into the iPhone."
Right.
And it's like, producers would pay a fortune to be able to get that sound on certain records. So yeah, I think if you're lucky enough to have a room where you can really get a great sound, that's great. But if you can't, something like the EAD or whatever, there are other ways. You don't have to use the EAD. You can have you can use whatever. You can use one. You could just put a single 57 in the room and just process it through the right shit in your DAW, and it'll still sound good. But there's always a way to make your shit sound good.
Well, it's like you told me when, I was trying to figure out, I put my brother's set down, I was kind of cleaning my stuff up, and, I text Wolf every day, just so you guys know, and I ask him a lot of questions like, what should I do? How should I do that? And he said, turn your drum around, and as soon as he did, I went, it's the Miles Davis thing. Everybody thought Miles was a prick because he had his back, but he wasn't. Because he was putting his horn so he could find the acoustics that actually sounded right. So Wolf just had me turn my kick around and face where I had open space, and it sounds so much better.
Much better.
I mean, I've recorded stuff, even with the EAD. Even Mike, when he was doing, he goes, "God, that's fucking amazing. That sounds so cool." And I didn't do anything other than just turn my kit around and face it to the other way.
Yeah, it's so I've done records. I mean, I've recorded at Power Station C and A, which are two legendary room sounds, and other great studios in whatever, any major city I've been in where I've worked at the top studios there. And each room has its character, and a lot of it is also the engineer. In New York, the three studios I've worked most at in the last 10 years were Monster Island, my Caffrey studio, which is no longer open, unfortunately. And then Mission Sound, Oliver Strauss's studio in Williamsburg, that's with that vintage blue Sparkle Ludwig kit.
Right.
That's my home. He's got my childhood Gretsch kit is there. That's the one place I can go and just show up with sticks because he's got an amazing drum.
Is that the same guy that you got the call that night and the guy wanted you to do right away and you said
yes? I said I would do it with Oliver.
Yep. I remember that. I
heard you on the phone. Yeah, that artist ended up being this singer named Normani, who's a big young pop R&B singer. But yeah, that came through. And who owns Jungle City Studio, which is the other studio I work at a lot. But really the studio I work most at in New York is Mission, Oliver Strauss's place. And, Oliver is a drummer himself. He's got a huge drum collection. I brought him to Zildjian with me where they let him handpick a bunch of cymbals. So he's got great cymbals. He's got the acrolite I'm holding in the picture you posted. That is actually his house acrolite. The other acrolite, the deeper one that I do in a lot of records is Mike Caffrey's from Monster Island. Mike's the guy that really got me into acrolites because I was more of a Superphonic guy for years until Mike got that acrolite when we were doing this Avril Lavigne record because I asked him I wanted a deeper snare. I said, go buy the Bonham snare, 6.5-inch Superphonic, and he found the deeper acrolite, which is pretty rare, and he bought it. And I was a little skeptical. I was like, this is not going to be bright enough, and he said, just listen to it. And we mic'd it up, and it sounded amazing. And since then, I've been a hardcore Acrolite guy, and I liked them before then, but really Mike's responsible for me becoming so into Acrolites. You have a Acrolite, yeah.
Oh yeah, mine is actually on my Facebook page. I velcroed my wallet, my hip wallet I used to have on it, and it's just killer and fat. Who cares? I mean, if it's amazing. Yeah. I actually like it.
Yeah.
Okay, Ken had a question. I don't know if it's for you or for me. What was it like to be featured in Modern Drummer magazine?
We could both answer.
We can both answer.
You can go first. Yeah.
Oh, well, what does it feel like for me? Well, I was, well, again, Wolf knows because he got the first phone. He got the first phone call. You know, okay. It came. I didn't know. Mike Dawson did not tell me that. I knew he had the photos. He asked me as a favor. I said, "Yeah, sure, dude. I've got two images of Nate. Okay, I mean two time periods. So I just sent it to him a long time ago. And so I went to my mailbox and I picked up my MD and I brought it in. I sat right down here, and I opened it. I go, holy shit, that's me. And I started going through that, and then all of a sudden, I just went like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing that ever happened to me." But then, you know, I got some help from Wolf. He goes, "You know, you got to keep your highs and your lows exactly at the same. Try to keep them right here together, so that you don't get too high, and then so you don't get too low." So I've had plenty of people come up to me, and thanks, Ken, for mentioning that if it was for me. But anyway, I've had a lot of people say, God, you know, some people, drummers, they've never been on, and you So I said, you know, that's it. I mean, that's the pinnacle for me. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
It's for a certain generation, like, we grew up reading Modern Drummer, so it was, you know, definitely an honor to be in there. Same thing with Drumhead. I mean, Drumhead is not as old. It's, you know, Modern Drummer is like the staple. Drumhead is a more specialized magazine to me, and it's a different type of feature. And I go back with Mover for a long time, and I wrote for Drumhead for a long time on electronics. So being in Drumhead was a dream come true. I mean, being a Modern Drummer was a dream come true, and then being in Drumhead, like Mover, like with Modern Drummer, they tell you if you're going to be on the cover or not. And Billy Amendola, who's a good friend of mine, let me know. I had a little bit there was some bad blood with Modern Drummer and me because of my association with Drumhead for a while. Because I guess they didn't want to feature somebody who was actively writing for a competing drum magazine. So, and there's some other stuff, but I think that's what it came down to. So after I had stopped writing my column for Drumhead, Billy reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're going to do something on you. It's not going to be the cover, but it's going to be a good feature." And it was really cool. So, I mean, it was very exciting. And then Drumhead, Mover doesn't tell you you're going to be on the cover. He doesn't tell anybody if they're going to be on the cover. And so
this is what he's talking about.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I remember I found out on Facebook. It was a Sunday night, and I'm going through Facebook and I see a post with that cover picture, and Mover posted like this month's issue. Yeah, I had no idea it was going to be on the cover. That was really that was like a really pleasant surprise. So George, you've read that. You know that's a much more in-depth feature where they really got into everything.
How many pages? I mean, it's like 12.
I don't know.
12 pages, something like that.
Something, I don't know. It was a
huge.
Big spread.
It's big. It's
big. That was really cool. So yeah, I was honored to be in both, and now it's like podcasts are kind of the new. It seems like that's how podcasts are kind of taking over. Like the print world is slowly going away, and even like Modern Drummer has their own podcast, and I think it's kind of the thing. So like every drum podcast I've been on, including yours now, because it's not a podcast, but it's more.
Yeah,
more
I'm in
or
the
less.
same. I'm in the same world,
thing,
but it's just a hang.
So
it's just a hang.
Yeah, but.
You know?
But yeah, I'm honored to be on all these things because, you know, it's like I'm in great company here. And with the first drum podcast I did was I'd Hit That. I've done a couple episodes of that. Drummer's Resource. 180 drum. Is it drums 180 or 180 drums? Discussion and percussion. Robin Flans. I'm forgetting some now, but I've done a lot of them.
Did you do Seamus's yet? Did you do his?
I haven't. I would love to be on it.
Seamus,
so, yeah.
If you're listening.
Yeah, hit me up, Seamus.
Yeah. He's he got picked up. He was one of the. I had a great interview with Seamus. Seamus was going to do a story about me when he was doing blogs, but he couldn't do it because
I remember that. Yeah,
he couldn't do it because he got picked up with Drumeo. So his blog was stopped, and so he just blew up, and he's been doing great. Extremely busy. So I had him on, and the problem, the reason we're here, and probably because I usually have 200-300 people when I do these things. Well, his entire 2 hours had no audio, none, and I just freaked out. I went, "What the hell happened?" And he goes, "Dude, I've done it so many times with so many people that I've done these great podcasts and I didn't have any audio." So he's a great guy, and he's given me some advice, on how to do it. But it's not really a podcast in the way it's taken off. But I think Seamus is a great guy. He's a great drummer.
And he's getting great guests. I've seen some of his stuff, and I like that it's a video format also, because most of the ones I've done are not video. This is the second. Jason's was the first video one I've done. This is the second,
and I think this is where, as you know, what we've been talking about. I mean, like I am keeping a list of people, and I am going to start doing this on a regular basis. I am going to start streaming to YouTube as well, because some people don't have more and more people don't have Facebook anymore. I mean, I just started using Facebook again, partially because you told me this is going to be on Facebook, because I used to share all my Instagram posts on Facebook, and then I stopped, and now I just started doing it again. But yeah, I forgot to mention. I would have went to YouTube, and I was going, and I still may. Now you can do both, but the reason I went to Facebook is because we both have a large group of drummers on each of our Facebook pages. So I thought, okay, this would be the great place, to get it started.
Somebody else you should talk to is, do you listen to Drum History podcast?
Yes, I do. I tag them.
Okay, I'm going to be on an upcoming episode, and it's again, I'm not going to try the last name thing. I'm going to fuck it up, but I mean, I don't know if Bart is down, the host of that, but like he'd be a good guy for you to talk to. Just really, because besides hosting that podcast, he's a drummer and he runs a studio and does a lot of remote work himself, and I've done some stuff with him. And but really cool guy, and I really love that podcast just because of the shit they get into is so deep.
Yeah. Well, we could have done that, but I thought for the first one we would keep it light. So
hang on one second.
Yeah, I'm not scrolling through mine.
I was just checking it out. Was there anything else we missed? Oh, near Harvard. That's Mike Peel. The Boathouse is near Harvard. That's with the big room sound. So, if I think my girl has. Did you meet her the other day?
No.
Did you say
no?
Oh, so she has her own company, Blunted Objects. She's in the cannabis world, which is, I'm not a stoner, but I am. I thought 420 friendly meant like you're cool with it, but now I think that means like you're into it. So,
oh really?
She has a company called Blunted Objects, and she is being very patient because she actually does a lot of her own content here too. But you want to say hi? She's here. This is her cool wallpaper and stuff. So this is Melody.
Hi Melody.
George.
How are you?
Good.
I want to say thank you because you've done wonders for Wolf.
Oh,
not that he wasn't.
He's really amazing.
I worried about him because with this virus and thing going on over there, and he was the kind of guy, he would get up and do all his shopping at night. He'd go to studios at night. He'd do all this, and then I was worried because everything was shut down, and I knew, and finally, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to make the move, and he made it, and I get this phone call from him. I go, Wolf doesn't usually call me unless there's something and there was a total different vibe, Okay, and it's not just me that noticed it. Gabe from Guitar Center said, what the hell's going on with that guy? I just got done talking to him, and he sounds totally different. And I go, well, here's the deal. He's living out in L.A. with his girlfriend. And he goes, that'll do it.
Are you talking about Judd?
Judd, yes. Why did I say Gabe? Okay, see, you got last
Oh,
names.
shout
I
out
have
to
first.
Judd from Guitar
yes.
Center.
Yeah,
Yes.
he said that to me. Because when I bought
no. A lot of my friends who know me cannot believe that I'm up during the day that I have. We have a dog. Like people are surprised that I have a dog now. He's usually out here.
Lobo, come here.
Yeah.
Lobo, come here. Good boy. Come here.
Come on.
Lobo,
come on.
I love it.
He's a little wolf.
Yeah. We got Big Wolf and Little Wolf. Oh, hello, baby.
His name coincidentally is Lobo, which means wolf in Spanish. But that had she's had Lobo for years.
No way.
Total
coincidence. Oh, I know you told me. I never even put. Is Lobo means lone wolf, right?
No, it just means wolf in Spanish.
Wolf.
Lobo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did Los Lobos do? Is Los lone?
Los Lobos means the wolves.
The wolves. Okay. Los.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know my
Spanish.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So really, that was coincidental, huh?
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
So my lifestyle has altered drastically.
Yeah, he's a day person now, kind of.
Well, I mean, I can switch gears easily. Like I was up till 6 a.m. today, which normally would be early for me to get to bed by 6, but these days it's very late, and I can't really sleep all day anymore because even if I go to bed at 6, I just wake up earlier. Also, you've seen my apartment in New York. It's like a cave. Here, everything's bright. There's like the light. I can't escape the light till the sun wakes me up. So,
girl, you done good. Yes, they'd say out here in Iowa. They'd say you done good.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Can I do a quick shout out to the company we talked about?
Okay, hang on. Let me try this and see how this goes. All right. Okay, and you can continue to talk.
All right. So, are we still on?
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Okay. So I mentioned ProMark. These are my wolf sticks. Evans Drumheads, Zildjian, who have always been cool with me. Zildjian signed me when I was still at Berklee when I got that first gig with Hiram Bullock. So I've been with Zildjian longer than anybody else. Paul Francis, if you're watching, Paul is the guy that he's been really cool and has like custom made me some shit that's amazing. But everybody at Zildjian's amazing. Sarah, Emily, John DeChristopher, who's no longer there, but signed me when I was a kid. And I'm sure I'm forgetting people. I apologize. But Zildjian Ludwig, who I've been playing since I was a kid, but I've only been endorsing for the last, 3, 4, 5 years. But yeah, I'm super happy to be officially with Ludwig now after having been using them. My first real snare when I was a little kid with Ludwig. So, and reflex pads I mentioned, XLN audio that makes addictive drums. Roland, who actually hooked me up with that V kit I have. I use a lot of Roland shit. I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but SKB cases, and if I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. Shure and Mackie, Shure mics and headphones, and Mackie monitors and interfaces. And shout out to Judd at Guitar Center Pro. Any of my friends that need a hookup with like a better level of service. It's kind of like a concierge thing. Like you just called Judd directly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And way below retail. So yeah, shout out to Judd at Guitar Center and also Sweetwater, who also Sweetwater and Guitar Center Pro are slightly different things. So I get different things from each, but they're both great.
They're both great. But Judd is just absolutely phenomenal. You call him up and he stops whatever he's doing, and I'll shoot it to you, And then he's got great stories of all the musicians and things that walk.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you know his background. He's from the Manning's music family, so he's part of like a heavy lineage in the music business. So
they're asking about have we ever been starstruck? You go first on that because you've seen more than me.
With artists, not really. But I get starstruck with people that you might not think I would be starstruck around. But anybody that I was really into when I was coming up, like I'll be at a set, I could be in a studio and I'll walk in the hallway a place like Jungle City, which is kind of like the last of like the glitzy, like New York studios, like the Hit Factory used to be, like where you'd be in the lounge and like people would be coming in from different sessions. And so I could be at Jungle City and you walk outside and there's Justin Timberlake hanging out in the lounge, or Pharrell, or Jay-Z, whatever. I don't get starstruck with anybody who's big now, but like I met Jelly Bean Johnson, the drummer from The Time, and I could barely speak. It was kind of embarrassing. Or Greg Errico, who's actually a friend of mine. I've been friends with him for years. Every time I talk to him on the phone, I have to stop myself from fanboying out. So anybody that I was really into when I was a kid, I still get a lot of... And Annie Lennox, I wasn't starstruck when I worked with her, but I remember the first time, because when I started with her, we were just doing promo and playing TV, which is different from playing like a concert. But then we did some shows, and our first show was in Europe, and it was like an outdoor amphitheater, and we're playing the set, and we go into Sweet Dreams, the Eurythmics song, and then hearing her sing it in real time, hearing that, because I, as a teenager when MTV first started, and so hearing her sing that, which is part of like the soundtrack of my adolescence, that I was a little starstruck on stage playing that song with her. But aside from that, maybe Marcus Miller. Like I remember he sat in with Hiram one day, and I was a little starstruck with him because I didn't really know him, and he was the bass player on so much shit that I loved. But no, I think the last two times I got really starstruck were Jelly Bean Johnson. And yeah, every time I talk to Greg Errico, I'll probably always be a little starstruck, even though we're friends. So, yeah.
When was the last time I was starstruck? Okay, all right. It was in my starstruck was like 1980, 84. Chick Corea and the Electric Band. They were at maintenance shop in Ames, Iowa. They used to have a thing called Jazz at the maintenance shop. And I was at the bar drinking a beer with Dave Weckl, but I didn't know it was Dave Weckl. I mean, we were just drinking a beer, and I said, I really want to see Chick Corea. He says, "Oh, come on, we'll come with me. Yeah. We'll go back to the green room." I was shaking as I was walking up there, and there in a comfortable chair was Chick Corea, and my heart was just beating. So, but after that, I started shooting concerts, and in my line of work. It goes like this: be cool and don't be a fucking dick. That's all you got to know about being a photographer is just those two things. So to be cool means don't you fucking come up and tell me you're the greatest thing I've ever seen. I love everything that you've done. You're great. You're phenomenal. You don't do that. And once you start getting that vibe, I mean, at PASIC I hang out with Antonio Sanchez. I mean, all these people. I mean, Wolf and Aaron Coleman. I mean, I don't anymore. But that doesn't mean I don't respect them. I don't know. Yeah. It's part of being. It's just part of being this family. You know what I mean? It's It's like when you see your a relative you haven't seen him for a while. It's like but then after a while, okay. A good case for me is, and I don't want to take, but a good thing for me is that I met Paul Wertico about 3 years ago. We were just standing together. Our birthday is like a month apart from each other. And so when we talk on the phone, it's like we've known each other forever. And then all of a sudden I go, oh, Jesus, that's the guy who played in Pat Metheny. And so I don't even realize it, And besides that, he's from Chicago. So.
No, it's like, I guess, I can do that without getting starstruck. But like you just mentioned him, like Danny Gottlieb and I both played on Lisa Maxwell's record, and I've known Danny over the years, but there's certain times where somebody that was that influential, I guess I have like some reverence for them, but not necessarily starstruck.
Right.
But definitely that thing where like I will always put certain people on a pedestal like Absolutely. That.
Right.
And I forgot James Brown and Pete Townsend, two people that I did meet in the 90s. When I was on, it was like festival things where we were all playing on the same show. And I remember like being outside of James Brown's dressing room and I showed up with a picture for him to sign because I knew he was there, going to be there. Same thing with Pete Townsend. And anybody, that I was that big a fan of, I would be a little sorry.
I guess I forgot to mention this. I don't have it with me, but in 1969 I went to the Denver Pop Festival. and Johnny Winter was there, and I actually purchased on eBay the press kit from the Denver Pop Festivals, and so I had the 8x10 press photo of Johnny Winter, and so I took it with me because I was running a concert website at the time, and I used to have giveaways, and so I contacted Paul Nelson, and Paul Nelson is the guy who cleaned up Johnny Winter and was his promoter, guitar player, whatever. So he set up an interview in his trailer with me and somebody from my website. And we sat down in this, and there's like a Winnebago trailer. So we sat down table to table, and I had a picture that I took of him at Wani, and then I had a picture from 1969. And I was a little starstruck at that particular point in time. I mean, I'm sitting right across the table from Johnny Winter, and I'm thinking, that is like a legend.
Yeah.
He passed away not too long after that. Yeah. That's when he was doing that thing with Edgar Winter, and it was supposed to be Leslie West, and whatever that was called. But yeah, I forgot about that. That was.
I see a couple questions. What's up, Alba Hanish? I mentioned James Townsend. I mentioned Alba before with Screaming Headless Torsos, but Christopher. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name. I will get it wrong. But how did your drumming career take off for you? Also, how is it you started playing with Katy Perry and the Sheik Keys, etc.? My drumming career, I discussed earlier, so I won't go into the full story. But yeah, people that I was playing with since junior high and high school, we all kind of like came up together. And it's like George was just saying, like, be cool, don't be a dick. It's like, be good at what you do, be reliable, and be cool. So it's really word of mouth at this point. I haven't really auditioned for much ever. The most meaningful work I've gotten has just been word of mouth recommendations. So my first gig with a major label artist that I talked about earlier was Hiram Bullock. That came from being friends with a friend of his who I played with at Berklee, Lisa Maxwell. And then every gig after that, like Grover Washington Jr. came through doing a one-off gig with Pablo Batista as percussionist at the time. And then Alicia Keys, Katy Perry, that was through Luke and Max Martin. And I remember working with Luke and Max at Luke's apartment on 21st Street when he was still in New York. And there was it was a duplex. There was a basement. They would be writing music. Luke would call me over and say, we want you to program his MPC setup. They'd play me the song idea. They'd leave me with Pro Tools and an MPC that I would do my drums and come up and get them when I was done. And I remember one day I went upstairs and it was those guys, and they were always taking meetings. And I come up and there's some very nondescript white girl, just in the corner, very soft spoken. They're like, "Oh, this is Katy." No idea she was going to turn into Katy Perry, but. Yeah, and then maybe a year after that, I'm working on her debut record, and I had no idea that was going to blow up. Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys came through recommendations. Well, I had worked with, so I mentioned Ann, who owns Jungle City, who's Alicia's longtime engineer and production coordinator. And I don't know if they credit Ann as a producer, but she does do a lot of production for Alicia. So I had worked with Ann previously when she was an assistant at forget what studio years ago. And then we worked again on a Bo Bice. I don't know if you remember him. He was an American Idol guy record. And so Ann knew me, and Alicia was looking for new musicians for like 2009 or 2010. And so Artie Smith, drum tech to the stars, Artie is Steve Jordan's longtime tech, but has worked with everybody and has an amazing vintage and new gear collection. Artie lives in Florida now, and he'll come to New York when he needs to. And I think last time Jordan toured with John Mayer, Artie's claim to fame is he's only done 2 tours. He did the expensive Wino tours, teching for that with Keith Richards, with Steve Jordan and Charles Drayton. And then it's like you can't afford Artie because he's so busy, like in the studio. He's worked with everybody. He's a legend. But Steve Jordan also doesn't tour as a drummer often anymore. So when he did the last tour with John Mayer, they brought Artie out for that. But Artie was friends with Alicia and Ann, and so when they were looking for drummers, I'm pretty sure it was Artie who said my name, and maybe somebody else. But because Ann Ann and I knew each other, again, word of mouth. We had worked together. She knew me. And yeah, Alicia wanted to check me out and had me come in, and there was this whole process they wanted to go through. I won't go into it now. And I was busy. I couldn't do it when she was available. So Ann just said, come in. Alicia won't be there, but we'll work. You, me, and Artie. And we're going to record a bunch of stuff, and I'll play it for her. And then I get a text like a day later, like AK, which is what she refers to as, AK loves your shit. She wants you to do the record. So that's how Alicia started. And then through Alicia, and Ann owning Jungle City, she has a bunch of other engineers there. And one of them is Stuart White, or Stu White, depending on, I think he goes by Stu now. But anyway, Stu is a great engineer. And it was through that initial Alicia Keys stuff that, like, Stu called me to work on Beyonce's record. And again, word of mouth. And I've done other stuff with Stu. And it goes the other way, too. Like, Stu's a great mix engineer. And there are a handful of people that I always recommend. People are like, I need a mix engineer. Like, I just have a list of, like, the first call engineers. And Stu's one of them. So, we all recommend each other for shit. And who else? I don't know. Aretha also came through the Jungle City connection. That Babyface was producing that. They needed a drummer, and Ann called me to do that. So yeah, that's a really long answer to your question, Christopher. But yeah, it's a
great question. I love hearing
but,
this.
But yeah, and like Annie Lennox, which was the first pop tour I did, and Annie's still big, but like in the '90s, she was like #1 on the charts internationally. That came through word of mouth through my friend Paul Pesco. I don't know if Paul's watching. Paul has had an amazing career, still has an amazing career. He's not a drummer, but George, he'd be a great guy for you to talk to, just because his resume is unbelievable. And he's another guy that, like, a lot of people, when I mention his name, they'll be like, yeah, I think I know that name. But when you hear everything he's done, then you know who he is. And you've probably seen him because you've ever watched Live from Daryl's House. Paul was MDing Hall & Oates for a while after T-Bone passed. So he did all that stuff. But, yeah, Paul's worked with everybody. He got me on the Annie Lennox gig. I did a Cher record through the Annie Lennox gig because Annie's producer was Steve Lipson, was producing Cher while I was in London, had me play on that. Ash does a lot of stuff with Steve Lipson now. But yeah, everything is just like word of mouth and just comes down to like be good at what you do, be reliable, and don't be a dick.
Yeah, that's what I tell. That's what I tell people. People ask me, they say, how did you, when I'm there, they say, how do you do what you do? And that's basically what I tell them, because in this world, what I saw happening, and this is true everywhere, is that with the touring, they switch up tour managers for like every sector that they go. So it's a completely different person. Okay, usually the person you talk to, same thing with the person you talk to may not be the person you actually work with. It may be somebody will set you up and you go there. Okay. Yeah. Who you are stays with you. I mean, if you fuck up, they're going to remember that easily. You have to have something out there that they can see readily. Find out where you are, and you just build your brand, and you go for it, and you just be cool.
So Christopher, no problem. And then Power Roundoff asked
what did you get out of Berklee?
A few things. I mean, the Hiram gig, again, through being at Berklee, playing in a big band where Lisa heard me play drums. And I think also I read, she did an interview. She was doing a lot of press for her big band record. And I think she said something about when she met me, because if you saw me at Berklee, you would not think I was a fusion drummer. And Todd said something like he saw me play some fusion recitals when we were at Berklee. Because Todd and I weren't there for long at the same time, but we were there for at least a semester together. And but yeah, if you saw me back then, I had like a really long mullet with different colors in my hair, pierced ears. It was pre-tattoos, but I dressed like a metalhead, and I was wearing like tight, like stretch jeans, and I would buy 2 pairs of Reebok high tops, blacks and whites, and I would mix them so I'd have 1 black shoe, 1 white shoe, and I looked like a metalhead, but I was mostly playing jazz and fusion. So I think that was part of it. A couple people have said, like somebody commented to me, said, you had the image thing together back then, which I didn't think of it like that. It's just like I just always had like my own sense of style, and but I think that probably played into it as well. Like I think Lisa said, like it wasn't that I was like the best big band drummer she ever heard, especially at Berklee. I was an adequate big band drummer, and I could sight read, which was cool. But I think seeing somebody that looked like me playing big band was probably stuck out more than if I had just been like somebody who looked like every other jazz drummer there. So I think that's part of it. So, but yeah, so getting my first like break and also my first endorsement with Zildjian, all from meeting somebody while I was at Berklee, meeting Lisa. And then also Tommy Campbell, who, George, you've heard me go off about Tommy Campbell. And he was a mentor to me. And the best thing Tommy really did for me was he used to let me go shed with him. And he'd let me set up his drums. Like, basically, it was kind of a mentor thing. Like, he would, like, let me hang out with him. He had 2 kids in his room. He wouldn't charge me. We could just practice together. And then I was honored to like carry his drums and set them up and break them down for him, because I got to sit and like get the best seat in the house, sitting right behind the kit and watch him play shows. And I remember on one of these gigs, he asked I forget which artist he was working with. He was like, "Can my boy sit in?" And that was it. Like that was my first time playing with like it was a sink or swim situation, because all of a sudden, like I get there and they call whatever song. It was a jazz standard, but they're like, okay, we're going to do it 9/8 or 7/8. I forget, but it was just like, and they counted off, and that's it. And you can't fuck up. Like I said, as a drummer, you got to be able to hang. So doing that did so much for my confidence. Like him having that faith in me, and also I remember him giving me like publicly complimenting me to one of his peers, saying, "Oh, this is a guy to watch out for." And specifically, I remember he said, "This is Steve Wolf. He's a bad motherfucker." And I remember that blew my mind. I was like, one of my drum idols just called me a bad motherfucker to somebody he works with. And, like I said, I was a very like melancholy kid coming up, and like we've talked about imposter syndrome. So like that.
Oh, yeah.
That in itself probably was one of the best things that came out of Berklee, was that. But then also, like, I mentioned Dave DeLome, who I joined Hiram's band with. Like, so many amazing musicians that I'm still good friends with today, that I still work with today, all came from being at Berklee. So, like, I knew going into it I wasn't going to graduate. I wasn't looking to get a degree. I wanted to just meet great people and play with great people. And I did that, and then along the way, I got this great experience playing, and like I said, being validated by one of my heroes did a lot for my confidence, which, I can't say enough about like what a helpful thing that was for me, especially at that point in my life. So yeah, a lot of great things. And yeah, and Powell, like meeting people like Powell, like there's a whole, drummers are a community. And so there's so many great drummers I went to Berklee with that we're still tight today. Mm-hmm. Brian Tishy, I don't know if Brian's watching, he's another guy you should have on. Brian is just a fucking beast. He's, for my money, the best living rock drummer right now. So, but yeah, so many great people I went to Berklee with. So yeah.
There's a lot of Berklee. There's a lot, well, the joke is that you just don't graduate from Berklee though, right? Is that it?
Yeah. Oh, thanks, pal. He said I'm a good artist because I did draw a picture of Tommy's kit. Yeah, I was a good drum artist. So, anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying the joke is that nobody graduates from Berklee.
Well, it used to be that. It was a kind of thing where, like, I was told, when you get to New York and you start doing sessions, don't announce that you went to Berklee. It's kind of because they look at Berklee as a factory and they're going to look down on you. But now Berklee's had this resurgence where it's kind of cool to graduate from Berklee. And there's a new generation of people I know that are like huge names now in the production world that they are very public about, like, having been to Berklee. Wow. So, yeah.
I've always held Berklee in esteem. I mean, forever. I mean, ever since the '70s. I mean, if you have Berklee in your pedigree, it's like, okay, It's like I always did, but I mean, I wasn't in the position. I was never in a position to hire someone or something. I was from a fan standpoint, you know.
Yeah, but Berklee was cool, and the other thing I got out of it was just the chance to be working so much, playing all day, every day. And now it's easier there because they have backline drum kits in all the practice rooms and rehearsal rooms. But back then I'd be packing my kit up, lugging it from room to room. And throughout a day at school, I might be in a recording session at the Berklee studio. I might be playing a recital. I might be doing an ensemble rehearsal. And then at night, I might do back-to-back gigs with an original artist and then like a cover band. And like that just really gets your playing together when you're just in so many situations, like playing all kinds of music with high-level musicians. And because there's somebody, I forget who it was, their kid, they live in New York, and they're like, my kid wants to go to Berklee. I'm like, well, you live in New York City. Like, you don't really need to go to Berklee to get that. You know what I mean? There's so many clubs. You can see great musicians, the best drummers in the world every night. And even though the music scene in New York isn't what it used to be, well, right now there's no music scene, but pre-pandemic, like, you could work all the time. So, and if you really want to study, you can get lessons with anybody there, and there's all much cool that too. But if you're not living in New York or a city like that, then Berklee is good for that. But I think Berklee is like prohibitively expensive. So it's like, if you like, I mean, you took a lesson with Dave Elitch. Like, Elitch's opinion is it's bullshit. Like, don't waste your money.
Oh, yeah.
And I totally get where he's coming from too. So it was good for me. I didn't want to graduate. I didn't graduate. I got what I needed out of it and made lifelong friends. And got.
I was gonna say, I mean, you know, if you go down the list, like you've already mentioned Aaron and Todd, and I mean the people that you know, you know, you have a Berklee connection with a lot of people, even though you don't know them. So it's like, you know, you went to Berklee. So I mean, I think it's good, but there's nothing better than, you know. It helps you, even though you can go out and play, but it's good. So so I'm seeing like Pan and Powell, also Berklee friends, Al Panish, who was on a minute ago. So it is what it is. Berklee can be great for some people, but also definitely not necessary. So Yeah. Well, I want to. Is there? Yeah, I was going to say, guys, this is. Thank you this is the maiden voyage of this, and I really want to thank Wolf for being the first one on here. I mean, there were some bumps. Honored to be here, George. Yeah, there were some bumps getting here, you know, and trial and error. You got to suck first, and there's nothing. Wolf has a real good. You got to suck story. I can't remember if he remembers what it is, but you got to suck first, and I did. I messed up 3 or 4 of these interviews, or these things. Oh yeah, you got to fail. Like, nobody who's great hasn't failed. And Billy Mann, who I mentioned before, he is a quote. I don't know if he made it up, but I've heard him use it, which is "dare to suck." Like, you know, dare to suck. Yeah, so you have to. You got to put it out there. So he's saying, Chris, might be somewhat of an amateur question. How is it that you tune your drums, toms in general? Well, that changes from what I was saying earlier. When I do drum sessions now, whether I'm programming and or drumming, I'm constructing a drum part and getting the sound as much a part as when I'm playing or programming. So I tune the drums to fit the vibe. And, you know, so if I'm going for like a Motown tom sound, is going to be different from like an early Beatles drum sound versus a later like T-Tal Ringo Beatles drum sound, or I don't know. There's so many drum sounds. I mean, if you want to, Christopher, go on my Instagram. I have those like short clips from Ludwig doing the Ludwig classic maple kits. And each kit was tuned differently. Like the Jazzette, I think, was the kit tuned them like bebop drums, and you know the Pro Beat kit tuned like a little more open, like Bonham-esque, and I forget what the downbeat was, more like a 60s kind of. So I mean, if you really want to get into specifics, how I like to tune toms, I never thought about it. I learned to tune drums when I was so young, but like only in the last few years I actually figured out the
the harmonic ratios. Like I always tune the bottom head a minor third above the top head, the batter head. And I like to, if I'm using two toms, I usually tune them to a fourth or fifth apart. And then if the toms are going to be open, I will tune them to the key of the song. And the snare, and even when I'm programming, anything that has a ring to it, I'm going to tune either to the root or the fifth of the track, because I want everything to kind of ring. And I've talked about this before in interviews with that song, Wrecking Ball, the Miley Cyrus song. Luke had already programmed the drums. I layered some live drums on top of that, and Artie Smith flew in for that, set me up like a big Von MS kit with a 6.5 Superphonic, which is what Luke wanted. And even though I was only going to be playing kick and snare, like doubling electronic kick and snare, we set up a 14-inch rack and 16 and 18-inch floor toms, a la Bonham, and we tuned to ring in the key of the song. So when I hit the kick and the snare, you hear the three toms ringing in unison, and they're all tuned to either a root or a fifth of the key of the song. So you just hear like the ambience in the key of the song. So I don't know if that answers your question, Christopher, but just I tune them to the song. And also, am I using single-headed toms or double-headed toms? That's a whole other thing which you don't have time to get into. But yeah, just learn to tune drums. Use your ears. It's not rocket science. Learn to hear the ratio between what the resonant head does on the bottom and the batter head. But yeah, if you want an easy thing to go to, you want to get and I've done this with you, George, online when you got your club dates. You want to cover up, and I learned this from when I had to, like, back in the, now when I played timpani, which is not that often anymore, but I was classically educated. And back in the day playing timpani, there weren't the pedals where you could just move where it automatically gets to the pitch. You actually had to, like, tune the drum, and you would have like a tuning fork, or like this little pitch pipe, and you found a way to kind of like hit the drum with, like, do this thing where you could get the fundamental tone of the head. But with double-headed drums, you got to cover up the other head so you can just hear the main head you're tuning, and you tap around the edge of the head, and you make sure all your tension rods are tuned in unison if you want like a unison sound. And then from there, for me to get the most resonant sound of the drum, it always ends up being about a minor third above. The resonant head is a minor third above the top head, but there's no rules. Some people tune the top head higher, some people tune both heads to the same pitch, and some people like to detune one of the lugs, so you get a little bit of a wobble. And there's no rules. And then when you muffle stuff, that affects everything too. And I was about to say something else about tuning toms, but I forgot what I was going to say, so I guess it doesn't matter. But we could talk for hours just about tuning and approaches to tune.
Absolutely.
So, I was going to say also, toms have a sweet spot, and the reason I use Evans the UV heads is because they do something, I don't know what it is, but they broaden the sweet spot range. So certain toms, like, you only have like a certain range of pitches where the drum really sings, but anytime I would take, especially difficult, like certain older drums are like a little out of round, they're a little difficult to tune. First time I used UV1 heads, and now they have UV2, but I noticed immediately they would like really expand the tunable range of every drum I use them on. So that's another thing. I don't know what head you use, Christopher, but I highly recommend for toms the Evans UV heads. UV2 is if you want a thicker 2-ply vibe, which is a little warmer, or if you want a little more resonance, the UV1 single-ply head.
Do you ever try the TuneBot? You can have mine. It's in a box.
So I ever tried it?
He says, "Did you ever try the TuneBot?" And I said, "He can have mine. It's in a box."
Oh no, I don't use stuff like that. No offense.
I bought one and I used it. I used it once, and I worked with Wolf on doing mine. So
yeah.
I mean, you said no. Don't waste your money. And that's my own personal opinion. Don't waste your money.
Yeah, just get a good drum key and learn to use your ears. That's
get a keyboard. Best. Learn what C is. Have a keyboard near you so you can find out what middle C is.
But even with that, like, I don't, like, when I'm in this, if like I'll be at a session and we're getting ready for the next song, if it's that kind of day where there's a band there, and I'll ask what key the next song is, and they'll say, but if somebody, I have relative pitch, but I don't have perfect pitch. So if somebody says it's in the key of A, I don't know A off the top of my head, so I'll just say, play me an A chord, or just an A on the piano. And from there, then I can get the drums in tune. When I say root or fifth,
right,
I can hear, because I have relative pitch. It's good to familiarize yourself with a little bit of music theory so you can do that kind of stuff. And if you're programming, same thing. When I'm programming, especially with like boomy sounds like an 808, like a sub bass, if I'm going to have it like a lot of resonance on it so it's ringing, you got to have that shit dialed in. And so yeah, when I'm programming, I tune everything to the track also.
Yeah. So. I was going to ask you a question, Wolf. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people are actually making entire albums like on their iPhone, and then they're taking it and then they're taking it home to their Mac and then finishing it up. Is like, wow, dude, how do they do that? I mean, what do they use? What tools do they use?
The thing is, you can send stuff wirelessly because it's just, we have the technology, but if not, you can just, you know, plug your phone in and get it out that way, or there are drives you can plug into your phone. But I mean, an audio file is an audio file, you know what I mean? So if you started in GarageBand on your phone, you can print your tracks that way. I've never done MIDI files in my phone, but I'm assuming you can do that too. And yeah, I mean, audio is audio. I mean, if you think about it, like when my first sessions were the first time I was in a real studio playing with the click track and doing all that shit was the early 80s when I was a kid or a teenager at that point. And then I remember by the time I got to New York and was doing sessions in New York, it was still the tape era. Everything was to tape. And like the idea of making a record, like we're talking about, like it's crazy that you're doing a record on your phone, but think about like all the records that are done in laptops. I mean, everything I do is either on a either on a desktop or a laptop computer. Even in big studios, like unless it's somebody that like is saying I'm only doing analog, only going to tape, which is like I was talking about Mission, the studio that I work in New York all the time. He's got like some real, you know, tape machines that just are collecting dust because we're doing everything in Pro Tools. So, and the thing is, like today's iPhone is more powerful than my first desktop Mac computer because the processing just gets stronger and stronger. So I think we're not that far away from. I remember my first Pro Tools rig. I had a Digio 01 and was like Pro Tools 5 or something. Very much, this is, I don't know, like 1999, 2000. I don't remember when I first got because in the first days of Pro Tools, you couldn't afford it. You couldn't get like a cheap home setup. So that was the first time you could get Pro Tools for like $1,000 because before that you were investing tens of thousands. And I look at what I could do on my Mac Pro from that year. I don't even think they called it a Mac Pro. Whatever it was like a Power Mac or something.
Yeah,
like
right.
Whatever it is, I can do something on my current iPhone now that is just as good as what I could do on like the desktop computer technology then. So I think the phone shit's just going to get better and better.
Well, yeah, and, we've mentioned the EAD a couple times, but you can connect your iPhone as an integral part to the EAD, and it just does so many things that you can connect to it. I mean, there's just so much to do like that, you know. But all said with everything, you know, the streaming, you know, the way we're doing things. Everybody said vinyl was dead, and now vinyl is going a different route now. It's going to adjust with that. We are going to, I don't want to say go back, but we are going to embrace some of the things, especially with this virus, especially the things that happen. People are looking at looking at things that they've done in the past. We're going to have to take a look at smaller venues now. We're going to have to take a look at playing in a place for 500 people. Well, that's going to mean a whole lot of different types of things.
Yeah. So, and remote recording too, because you and I have talked about this before.
Right.
I've been doing remote recording for years, but now people that never did it before are having to, just because that's good. Like it's really affecting record production where.
Oh, like absolutely. It's going to vinyl in itself. The content in and of itself, vinyl is still going to be there. It's just because I think it's the best sound. Anyway, personally, I have a lot of, and I was talking to Nikki today, and she goes, well, you know, she says, I think I'm going to do a remaster. I think I'm going to make my own. Everybody else has. I've never done it before, so I'm going to go ahead and make it. So there's a lot of people that are getting into this, and the information is everywhere to learn how to do it. You know, so.
Yeah, I gotta plug my phone, and I'm at 2%. So. Oh, let's see. Okay, there we go. Yeah, but yeah, it's Is there? Gotta go talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Better can. So yeah, I think we covered.
Yeah, I think we did. I think we covered everything, and we should probably call this one a thank you, Wolf, and thanks to everybody.
Thanks for having me, George.
You betcha.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
All right. And if I forgot to shout anybody out, I apologize. And,
no, I have this. We'll do it one more time here. Here's Wolf's gear right here.
Okay.
Okay. You see, this is Wolf's gear. So.
Oh, me. Oh, Zildjian, Ludwig, Promark, Evans, Reflex, SKB, Roland, Mackie, Shure. I know I'm forgetting people. Oh, XLN Audio, Addictive Drums, and there are other plugins too. I use the DS10 on everything. Yeah, if I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. But
you got everybody that's on your website.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Oh, you're looking at my website?
Yeah, I just had it up like so, like this.
Cool.
See right here.
Oh, I should just do that.
Right there.
Let me go to wolfadelic.com.
It's the same. I have it up on the screen, Wolf.
Gear. Oh, I can't see it on the screen I'm looking at. Yeah, Zildjian, Promark, Ludwig Evans, XLN Audio, Rhythm Tech. Rhythm Tech tambourines I use whenever I do tambourine overdubs. Rock and Sock drones. Okay. I forgot. Roland, Mackie, Shure, SKB, Reflex, D'Addario, F Expansion. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks again, George. And good to see you. I'm sure we will talk.
We will. We will.
After we log out.
Yes.
And, yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Later.